Ready?
Can I say, I have here a photograph of my parents, which causes the whole of my family to laugh when they see it, because they say, Granny looks as if she's facing the firing squad. And it's just what she does look like. Her mouth is taut, and she's obviously terribly, terribly concerned. And this is because, plainly, when she grew up, there wasn't a lot of photography around. So when people began to photograph other people more, she was not particularly used to it. And her anxiety shows in the way she looks. She's holding her hands and over her lap, and plainly she is terribly worried. On the other side of the chest in which they are, cabinet rather, that they are sitting near, is my father. He's got one hand on top of another. He also looks somewhat solemn, but somehow not quite as fraught as my mother. Beside her is a chair on which she's got our dog. Now, the dog is a rescue dog, and when anything happens that is unusual, it becomes agitated. So it's on a lead, and this is fixed somewhere so that he won't leap up and suddenly attack me with the camera, and not, I think, to hurt me, but rather to find out what I'm doing. My mother and father were very keen on this dog, because if there's one thing I remember all through my life, it is that when we found an animal in need, we've always wanted to help it. And this dog definitely was. Quite where it had come from, I don't know, but I found it first. I heard it in a neighbouring back garden, and the children of that family were encouraging it to go after pigeons. And it actually caught one and did something terrible to the pigeon. I was absolutely beside myself. I do not like the sight of blood. I don't like that sort of behaviour. And as for my mother and father, they were really distraught about it. So without thinking about the fact that this was unlawful, I went to the people who the dog belonged to, and I said, you can't have him, you don't know how to look after him. And I then put a lead round on his collar, and I then dragged him because he didn't want to come. He was not used to being on a lead, and I dragged him home. I have to say that the family concerned pushed him from the other end to help me, so plainly they thought it was quite normal that somebody should come and interfere with their dog. I realised afterwards that they were a socially known family who were always in trouble because they couldn't manage their affairs. Actually, they always smiled very nicely at me and were always very pleasant. So I think really that although they didn't know how to manage themselves, they did know enough to realise that we were trying to be of help to them. I was glad about that, because nobody wants to feel as if people think they're being interfering busybodies and not really caring about them. And they would talk to me quite often and say things, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. My mother said, now that's the right thing. That's the way to do it. Be nice to people and respect them. And I thought, well, I hope I'm doing the respecting bit.